Our couple. I'm Chief Hamrick, Pastor Bob, and we welcome you to this show today about the positive impact. With us today is a friend and brother of ours, Jason Brockman, with our Mount Juliet Police Department. Today we're going to be talking about just things that impact our community and what we can do to combat or to help in those situations. As you say, we've heard before on this show that we're talking about relevant issues, real issues that impact our community greatly, and trends that are going on not only here in our local community, but in the United States and in the world. So, Jason, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
From your perspective of the things that you do, what are you seeing out in the marketplace? Because as an administrator of a law enforcement agency, we talked about on our initial show about how law enforcement and communities seem to have a strain, and we know that that's real in a lot of areas. But what are you seeing, because you're out in the streets, and so what are you seeing in the impact?
There's a lot of things that we're seeing.
Okay.
A lot of it has to go with the increase of drugs in the community, the increase of the youth violent crimes, and really just the strain on family values. That to me is the hot topics. I mean, there's always going to be the gang relevance. There's always going to be.
But you just said something that I think is key that I don't hear very often in this kind of discussion. You said a decline in family values. And that's not something that's talked about very much, is it?
It's not. We try to talk about it in our community as much as we can because, our chief, obviously. But the family values are huge. It's not just the gang family values. It's not just your it's everything from your church family values to how you're raising your 2-year-old kid versus your 13-year-old kid. We've got to get back into people's lives. The simplest way for me to say this is when you pick up your child from school, you don't just ask him how his day was and he says it was nothing. You ask him, how was art? What did you do in art? How did you draw that? Because those conversations and getting those conversations started go much further with developing A, how to communicate, right, with your children, and B, what really happened. You might actually find out that they're not passing their grades. You might find out that they were subjected to somebody trying to sell them drugs today.
Or bullied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bullied is huge, and how they feel and teach them how to move forward. Because without educating them and saying, have you tried this, they're floundering out of water.
I know one thing that's when we talk about impact, used to be a time when we deal with certain issues and we only dealt with those issues like high school perspective. They were in high school. Now that's moved down to middle school, and now we've even seeing some of the same issues happen in our elementary schools. And so from a law enforcement impact and certainly from a parental impact, we should be paying attention, and as Jason just said, having those conversations, parents and children at an early age. I was just at a elementary school, and one of the kids said, do you know they're vaping in the restroom? And I'm like, what? But it's
and this
real
is elementary school.
Right, and so these are real issues in real time, and so we have to deal with them in real ways, and what he's talking about.
Now, Chief, you said vaping. You're not talking about just vaping. I mean, we think of the thing that people are using to get off of nicotine.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of things that go into a vape pipe.
And I'll just say that with Juuls and things that are going on, these are happening with kids. And even though they said that they're not marketing the kids, anytime when you have Fruity Berry and whatever type of thing, we know that those are marketed to kids. And the thing about it is that one of those have more nicotine in it than a pack of regular cigarettes. So
And
we're
that's
talking
Jewel,
about,
isn't it?
right?
That's
And we're
it.
talking about
Yeah.
elementary kids, man. And
Wow.
so again, the family values and how we're communicating with our kids, and we have to get back to communicating. Had to get back to sitting down, having. I was watching a show the other day that used to come on, the Waltons.
Yeah.
I was watching that show the other day, and I watched about 2 or 3 episodes of it, and just it took me back of men getting around the table, and then when the father said, "Hey, come on in here," and
Yeah.
that whole family came in into the living room to sit down, and we're getting ready to listen to it, and it just took me back, man. Wow, what would happen
Yeah.
if we could get back to that? Because from
Yeah.
Jason's standpoint, he is an investigator. He and his team are there out there investigating these crimes, whether it be drug related, thefts, whatever, aggravated crime. They're doing the investigation on these crimes, and so they're seeing the brokenness even in these homes, even more so than I am as an administrator.
So what we instill in kids at 5 and 6 and 7 years old will largely impact the person they're becoming later on in life and the kind of person that you might be arresting a little later on.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know I can't say the studies for sure, but I know there's a lot of studies out there that have shown that, we're setting our children up from the young age and teaching them how they're going to grow. I mean, if you set a good foundation on a house, the
Yeah.
house is going to stand there for years. So we have to set a good foundation on our child, even though it is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, because without that, they're not going to be able to grow.
Those are the formidable years.
Well,
Anyway.
Did you know that 3/4 of everything we will ever learn in life, we learn before we're 6 years old?
Wow.
3/4 of it. So those are really important years, aren't they?
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, I was right.
I had that conversation just the other day with one of my nephews, and was talking to him. He's like, I really don't remember most of my youthful age.
Yeah.
The first memories start to come around 5, 6 that you really truly remember.
Right.
So,
That's
What
true.
about you talked about, and we talked about off camera earlier, about having not only balance but a foundation, that foundation that is so crucial to all of this brokenness. And then we talked about something being passed down and modeled when we're talking about, for instance, dealing with somebody that has an addiction or involved in crime, and then we get to looking at their background and what we said. We made this statement of finding out what's normal in their environment and in their lives. They're out here by themselves. So speak to those issues, if you would.
we've always talked about domestic violence, and if there's a domestic violence or some type of physical relationship or mental abuse going on in a home, then that can be passed down through the family, because that's what the child sees his entire life and thinks it's normal. If that happens in that situation, it's also being taught to us now with the opioid epidemic that if you have an addicted family member in the house, that you have more potential to be addicted yourself.
Now,
So-
we always thought that if you watch a parent who is addicted to, well, is an alcoholic or addicted to certain drugs, that you see the destruction that it causes and you back away from it, but that's not true.
Well, there's some truth to it. There is
Okay.
some truth to it. I mean, because people are really driven in that period of time, or they become passionate to get out of that realm.
Right.
But through the educational classes we're going through, it teaches you that that's not so often the topic. It's normal for them to grow up in that situation that, hey, my dad has been in prison my entire life. That's normal. So if he goes to prison or she goes to prison, then that was normal to them. So now
Because
their
that's
kids
the way
are
our
growing.
family is.
And same thing with the addictions, whether it's alcohol or vaping. A lot of studies are out there that if these children are using these vaping, and part of it's peer pressure, part of
Right.
it's they want
Sure.
to fit in.
Sure.
So if we teach them the correct values at such a young age, and that this is not normal to either abuse drugs, go to prison, even domestic violence. We're going to be able to hopefully change the environment, change the topic.
Now, we have some people that are watching right now who have young children at home who maybe are struggling with some of these issues and don't realize the impact that they honestly have on the children in their household. What would you say to them?
I do this quite often, actually. I go to a lot of homes and just talk one-on-one, but it starts with the conversations. You've got to be able to communicate and talk to your children, even though they might not want to talk at points in times. You have to find that topic that's going to get the conversation started, because then it's like a snowball going downhill. It's going to get bigger and better. And then you're going to start noticing that you're not giving them the iPad to go and spend an hour on the TV so you can watch your episode and they can go watch their iPad. Sit down and play Legos. I feel like a kid now with my kids at home playing with Legos again. And it's just fun. But at the same point in time, you're starting that balance.
Yes.
You're figuring it out. One of the only goals that's ever been instilled upon me was I want my children to have a better life than I have. And there are so many people out there that are working 2 jobs to give their children a better life. And they're working hard for that. What are we sacrificing? And
good point.
There's always risk and reward. There's always, a cause and effect, and we need to start weighing that out. And I struggle with that a lot because I work a lot, for the city and try to do the best we can.
Tough taskmaster,
this is the thing. I would say a better life to me. A better life starts with better love to me, and I think we become a culture and a society that is become consumed. That's why that term consumers. We become consumed with buying and giving and making sure our kids have things, and what they need is our love.
Yes.
And so
consumed by consumerism.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's it. And so, and with a lot of, being real, there are some legitimate people that are working nights and they had to make ends meet. It's not even to have an extravagant lifestyle. They're just making ends meet, and while they're at work, their kids out, and our youth aggravated crimes are up.
Wow.
The stolen vehicles and the carjackings and those things like that. And hey, listen, audience, we told you we were going to have these conversations here on The Odd Couple, but man, we're in pursuit of 13 and 14-year-olds breaking into gun stores, breaking into cars. 12, 13, 14,
and not even old enough to have a gun license or a car license or anything, and yet here they are.
And so we're seeing those, and then the first question that we ask, we always know, that's asked by anybody in the conversation is, where are the parents? And where are the parents? Sometimes they are working from legitimately, and but other times, I know in one juvenile's case, he's out here doing his own thing, and both parents are addicts. They're addicted, and they're drugged out, and so they're fending for themselves, and
he's raising himself.
And
this whole thing about I need a nicer car, a bigger home, all of that is really part of our culture, and yet you're saying it's really destructive in the same, also because it's really taking time away from the family. And at the end of the day, when that child graduates from high school, hopefully, and you're looking and saying, what kind of children have I turned out? You're not going to say, I'm so glad we had a nice car. I'm so glad we had a bigger house. What you're going to hopefully say is, I'm so glad we spent time together so that you became the person that I'm proud of.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. I want to look and be judged on not only what I've done in my life, but how I raised my family. I model myself after my father, his work ethic, and he taught me a lot in my life. And those mentors in your life are so important, and we're almost taking advantage of it as adults and as parents.
Hey,
we've got to get back to some basics. And I'm sitting here telling you this, and I struggle with that at times too.
Absolutely.
Duty calls, and we've got to work, and we've got to provide.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, there's times you can make up for it, and not just vegging out or watching TV shows or get down on the floor and play with the kids.
And do something productive.
Let me ask you this before you go in. I'm going to ask that statement and turn that statement into a question for you. When we talk about the opiate epidemic, when we talk about the sex trade epidemic, when we talk about the youth violence epidemic, because all of these are epidemic proportions, the question is, do you think we can arrest our way out of the problem?
Oh, no. We're not going to be able to arrest our way out of this. And as a young officer, 20 years ago now, you're naive to that, and maybe you think you can.
Yeah.
Our motto, community strong, is a huge tool for us. I mean, we're only going to be able to get out of this, and it's really three parts for me. It's enforcement, it's education, and then it's prevention. But for us, it's the community involvement. There's not enough police officers to arrest every drunk going down the road. There's not enough police officers to be everywhere you need when you need them. But we do have to work together with organizations, churches, and the community just as a whole in order to not just battle these epidemics, but also what's coming down the road. Again, it starts with us and our youth, and preventing it at a young age and teaching them what is right, the morals, the values.
Yes.
I always say good job to a child when I see him open a door for an elderly person.
Good. Yeah.
That's the Boy Scout in me.
Absolutely.
It's so important, and we have to. What's the word I'm looking for?
You have to instill those values, don't you?
Yeah, but you have to make sure they know that's okay. That's the good job.
Good, yes. Reinforce
it.
Yes,
And
right.
because until we start doing that, we've desensitized ourselves to gun violence.
Come on.
Yes.
To sex.
Yeah.
And I mean, youth has always been one of my passions, and I've always made that one of my focuses. But when I'm hearing 14-year-olds are out here being sexually active, that's hard for me to understand.
Yeah.
And
very destructive.
it is. And what is
So
that
many
doing
ways.
for us? And
Yes.
then what the access to pornography,
Yeah.
and they think it's okay to do some of these things that they see on TV, when that is not what you're supposed to do.
And they don't understand the addiction that they're headed for.
Yes.
This is such an important foundation for all of you who have children. This is really important stuff, because these are the formative years that you have an opportunity to do something about where your family goes. And next week, we're going to get into a little more nitty-gritty here.
Sure.
We want to talk about the opioid. Well, it's an epidemic
Yes.
at this point. We want to talk about sex trade, and when we think about sex trade, we think about other countries where where we hear about it more, but it's right on our
here.
back door.
Sure.
We want to talk about some of these issues, and Jason, you're in the trenches in these areas, and let's talk about this next time, and let's talk about first of all, let's heighten our awareness, and then talk about what we can do to be part of the community, like you're saying, to get involved. He was pretty cool too.
Yeah, it's cool.
We got some pretty cool guests on this show.
I'm telling you, and we're going to bring relevant content. I will end on this note. We're going to be bringing the things to you and dispelling some myths that you have about as it relates to social media, where our kids are, where they're hanging out, all of the platforms that they have, Snapchat and all of these things, because there's a myth that says they believe that they can delete it and it's gone.
Oh,
But
boy.
we'll be talking about that here on The Odd Couple.
It's going to be juicy. Don't miss an episode. God bless you.
Peace.